Hello everyone, especially Steamians from Steamit.com. This is Colonel. Today is January 15th. I'll be reading something I wrote that doesn't have an infographic per se, but I've added one in order to elucidate a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So I'm providing it in audio format just like I do the other ones, since this is a quality piece and I want to make it more easily accessible to more people. Thank you. My working title is more, quote, natural musings. Is there a natural law we can recognize? Natural law is generally a term used to refer to a basic moral understanding. It's a natural understanding we develop in life. We understand some things as right, some things as wrong, and it can be objectively understood despite an individual's inability to comprehend how. We may use the words right and wrong in different ways, and also fail to distinguish right from wrong, and say something is right when it's wrong, or wrong when it's right. But those are limitations of the individual's subjective consciousness's inability to objectively discern the difference. When you're too attached to yourself, that will subjectively blind you to an objective appraisal of reality. Because reality isn't just you who gets to do whatever you want, to harm others physically or defraud others with clever schemes. A failure to recognize objective morality is the problem of the individual consciousness, not of objective morality being discernible. The header is natural ? It's natural in the sense that these are intuitive understandings that we develop naturally through cooperative survival optimization, instead of trying to live as an island alone and doing everything alone where you don't need to have any concern for others to survive. If there is no one around to be affected, there is nothing to be concerned about, and you do whatever. These understandings of how to act are natural developments in behavioral causal reciprocity. If beings are looking to optimize and cooperate, morality will become recognized, if not consciously. Then it's an amoral comprehension that follows intuitive causal stimulus processing to arrive at non-contradictory responses on how to behave for cooperative survival. Before abstractions of ideas, concepts, and language, there is an intuitive understanding based on a causal reciprocity, cause and effect, stimulus-response. When an animal species interacting with others of its own kind, or others of another kind even, within the larger animal kinship of the animal kingdom, there is a reciprocal interchange from one causal agent to another, where certain behavior on the part of one will be a stimulus upon another agent that will trigger a response. Each individual's desire to survive and not be harmed will result in a reciprocal interchange to maintain that status of self-existence. If another individual attempts to harm our natural tendency to survive, we respond in defensive means to retaliate against threats to our being. It's cause and effect. This is all natural in how we respond to stimulus that is a threat to us. Of course, causal agents can choose to not defend themselves, can be a victim, can take a beating, etc. A consciousness agent can choose to do nothing when they are being abused or harmed, and some causal agents can't defend themselves to harm being done. But a natural response is to recognize harm being done to ourselves or to others. We recognize patterns, repetition, and develop an understanding of what is right by recognizing what is wrong. Learning about harm, what is wrong, is an apophatic process of not doing things. At a lower level of arrangement, construction, coordination, and organization, there is the non-organ, non-psychological, non-animal dimension of only base biological responses from stimulus the environment provides. Animals have this as well, since we are also made of basic biological factors that have evolved to be more complex yet work similarly. Biological things, from plants to animals, humans included, have causally stimulated responses, quote, programmed genetic behavior, and epigenetic influences to affect individual differences in evolution. The organization and construction of atoms, molecules and larger constructs, enables a more sophisticated interchange within its own construct, such as electrochemical interchange, but also with reality on a more active response basis, such as growth, decay, and other factors, compared to inanimate matter that only engages in chemical reactions as a sophisticated interchange. The biological level has a biological life to sustain for growth until it decays, and some plants have programmed responses to threats to its growth potential. Higher biological coordination and organization produces actual organs in organisms, which is the realm of the animal kingdom that diverges from simply being biological, animate matter of the first type of basic life. The animal kingdom develops into the complex organization and formation of neurons that establish the basis for more self-directed epigenetic evolution. Psychological life emerges. Choices can be made. Interaction increases, and mobility is a usual requirement. The organic, due to organs etymologically, not simply biological like plants, are the animals which have the psychological dimension that emerges due to the neurons developing. This allows greater agency in the world through a variability in choices to engage in different behavior due to increased mobility and interactive capabilities. So for the audio, I'll just do a brief explanation. We start off at the existential level, existent things. The only type of movement here is chemical movement. This is with matter, energy, all that is. This is the basic level. Everything belongs to this level. It's a non-biological limit restriction in terms of the classification. So once you get to biological, well, it's not simply existential. Non-biological organization and complexity at this level. Rocks, other things, just atoms and molecules and things like that aren't biological. It's non-bio only limit, high predictability in terms of not having a lot of variability and change. A rock doesn't have much potential to change things. It's a causally determinate changes in terms of wind, water, etc. Outside causal forces can move it, can cause it to change, but not internal forces. As we go up, the next level is biological. This is the first level of living things. Now, instead of just chemical movement, there's electrochemical movement that are possible as interchanges. This is where we have the 6 kingdoms of life: animal, plant, fungi, protist, etc. I don't remember the other ones. This is the non-animal limit. It's non-interactive. So when you're just at the biological, you're not at the next one, which is for animals. So there's not much interaction in terms of your mobility and what you can do. So I just call it non-interactive because you're not interacting. You're not going to interact with a fungi or a plant very much. But you can with animals, because animals are interactive. So the biological domain is where you have higher order matter complexity, which forms as biological. Instead of just inanimate matter, it becomes animate because it has the biological aspect, which is the beginning of, quote, life. So the bio-only limit, higher order complexity, it's the basic bioelectrophysical determinant automated stimulus response. So there's no free will or consciousness, contrasting to the previous level where it was just causally determinate changes of wind, water, outside forces. Now you have bioelectral physical determinant automated stimulus response. So that's the, quote, programming, where certain stimuluses will elicit certain responses based on the programming within the organization and complexity, the genetics, etc. The next level is the organical, and I use organical because that's the etymology, organs. So organic chemistry deals with biological as well, so it's not purely organical. So I'm talking about the true meaning of the words, etymology. Organical is when the psychological things develop, not simply living things, not simply existing things. They are existing things, biological things are existing things, and biological things aren't necessarily psychological things, they're not necessarily organical things. But when you're organical, you are biological and you are existential. When you're psychological, you are living and you are existing. So this is how the levels work of categorization that I've come up with. The organical psychological things, that's where you have psychological movement. So instead of just basic bio-natural movements at the biological level of electrochemicals, now you have psychological. You have movement in this other realm, the psychological realm. The emergence of consciousness from lower to higher. As Darwin said, the animals are the same in kind, kinship, kingdom. I've done etymology on this word. You can go look it up. From the lower to the higher. Because we're the same in kin, as I was saying with Darwin. We're the same in kin, but different in degree. The same in kind, different in degree. Degree of consciousness. This is the animal limit. For whatever limit you'd have above, which you can say like humans, we have more of an ability, so you could differentiate there, which I think I have in another slide, but it's not part of this presentation, this talk. So the animal limit is interactive and mobile compared to the just biological, where there's not much interactivity and it's not mobile. It's a more complex, quote, organic life in terms of the science who wants to say organic life. So I should have put biological, and that's an error which I will correct, and you won't see it in your image. So this is more complexity and order, the psyche and consciousness, free will, less predictability. Versus before was the first level is high predictability. It's pretty much just causally determinate changes, and if you had enough information about the causal forces, you could see what's going to happen and determine what's going to happen next with enough accuracy. But when you get into consciousness and free will, that doesn't have predictability, because although there are stimulus factors which causally affect you to respond in a certain ways based on basic psychological functionality, there is still free will which can diverge from that basic conditioning and programming and psychological responses. We can overcome fallacies and biases and other conditioned responses. So we have the organical psychological things have more agency and power, more self-determination. It's a different degree. So we're in the same kingdom of life here. We're in the animal kingdom, not the other kingdoms of life. This is the higher kingdom, the more evolved, more complex. It has the emergence of the psychological dimension. So we're the same kingdom of life in the animal kingdom. All that basic biological level, we have that emergence that's different from the basic biological level. We have organs where animals, the psyche develops. So we're different in the degree of our psyche. So that's my ad hoc explanation. That's why I prefer to do written things that I can read, because it's like sporadic when I try to explain things on the fly. So maybe you enjoyed that, maybe you didn't. Thanks anyways. It was a bit long. And back to the text. For example, a rock does nothing. It can only be affected by external causal forces like wind, water, etc., or other forces in order to make it change, erode, etc. A plant has more capability to causally affect reality, as it has basic input-output stimulus-response programming to grow, and then it decays to affect reality. A rock does not have that level of activity or time factor. A rock does not have stimulus and response adaptability. Further, the animal kingdom, the organical and psychological, is higher than simply being biological. The animal kingdom has great interactivity and even greater ability to affect reality. Since we are also biological, we decay as well in time and last less long than plants, such as trees that can live for hundreds of years or more. Each successive arrangement, coordination, and organization of the components in existence evolved to create more complexity and more emergence of new functionality and capabilities. A rock has the least, plants have more, and animals have the most, with humans having the most capacity to alter and affect the reality around us. That was just to explain how the development of complexity can be categorized and how there are two main levels of processing: the bio-natural level, that is to say biological and natural, and two, the organical psychological level. I am explaining how we come to recognize stimulus from our environment in a psychological causal agent dimension. Actions from consciousness come from a causal agent that creates causes actively, not accidental actions alone that are simply manifesting through other causal forces acting upon it to stimulate a response according to basic laws of causality. This is all naturally developed, whether subconsciously, unconsciously, or intuitively understood through a basic information processing at the psychological level, or whether it's a conscious awareness of what all this recognition of behavior means, to call it by the concept, morality, natural law, or anything else. Put groups of animals together to survive cooperatively, and this will come about naturally through the ability of consciousness to be with knowledge, which is the etymological meaning of consciousness. This isn't to say they live morally. They don't understand what it is or how to do it more. It's just a basic understanding that comes from cooperative, reciprocal interchange and activity to optimize survival. The fallacious ideology of might makes right often wins out over objective morality. I'm just pointing out how at a basic level, cooperating is understood to some degree, and this forms the basis for what later develops into the morality of our behavior towards others, the quote, natural law. I also mean putting animals that can coexist together without inherently fighting, like the same species or species that won't eat each other to survive, although in some cases predators have protected prey in the wild and have become friends. This is the psychological dimension overriding the basic bio-natural instinct to survive by eating anything. That shows the power of consciousness in other animals. Humans can better understand this intuitive capability that develops from understanding each other as ourselves and not harming others, as we respect them for not harming us or others as well. If they violate that trust to not harm us or others, then they no longer get afforded the respect of cooperative reciprocal survival. They are violating that inherent, intuitively understood trust, loyalty, and faith. The actions and behaviors of others are objective facts in reality. They happened. We process that information and can respond accordingly. We can respond in rational, objective ways to reciprocate survival optimization. If others want to play dirty, break the rules, and try to harm or defraud others through deceit, falsity, manipulation, etc., then they are breaking the reciprocal survival to maintain that trust. The psychological dimension allows for greater interactivity and creative effect upon existence. Consciousness has greater power to affect, alter, modify, manifest, generate, and create into existence. This is only a basic understanding of morality or, quote, natural law and how it starts. I have more work in the future. I have a lot of understanding on this topic that can be demonstrably explained for you to verify in life. Understanding the meaning of words is crucial, as I emphasize in a lot of my previous work. Well, thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a nice day. Take care. Peace.